The return of New York Times best-selling author John Gilstrap, freed from back constraints. Welcome back, big fella. How you feel?
Good morning. I feel great. The folks at the Rockefeller Neurospinal Institute in Berkeley County roto-rooted my back at 2 levels. I feel great, actually. Once the staples go out of the small of my back, I will feel much better than I do now. But in terms of all the nerve pain, I've been suffering pretty badly for the last few months.
I can get a staple remover from Crush's drawer if you want to save the copay. I can just go in and rip those things out myself.
I'm a Medicare. There are no copays. So.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a burden.
Well, welcome back, you tax user.
There you go.
Also, he is the Jefferson County Prosecuting Attorney, Matt Harvey, with absolutely no jurisdiction at all in Berkeley County. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning. Good to be here. It's good to have John back, too.
I see you're back in the tie and the jacket again today. Nice.
I know. I felt so guilty last week not wearing a tie for, because it's radio. I want to be dressed appropriately.
And TV.
It is TV.
I mean, you can look to the right and see yourself.
I'm on Facebook. Yeah.
And TV 10.
And TV 10, Comcast, yes.
Yeah.
Tune in.
Encouraged to wear a pink shirt.
It looks good this time of the year.
Well, you know what?
It
finally feels like summer or that spring. It's not raining right now, so.
And you've inspired our first guest, John Hardy, to also rep it, coming in looking good for the show. Mr. Hardy, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I left my jacket in the car. I thought, well, I'll just have a shirt and tie on. That'll be good. And then here Matt comes in. I was like, I need to run out here to the car and grab my jacket real quick. But I didn't have enough time to do that. So
I like the competition.
Yeah.
Keep it going. Maybe Tuxes next week.
Maybe.
I'll do a tux.
I've got a tux. Yeah,
Let's do it, John.
I've got a tux, yeah. So.
Yeah. I think Gil's got 1 or 2, maybe 3.
Maybe
3.
Maybe we all show up here in tuxedos.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
A Kentucky tuxedo is what you'd wear.
I don't know what that is.
It's all denim.
Oh, no, I don't have one of those.
Yeah, you do, John.
No, his is acid wash from the 80s. Man.
Yeah, right.
With a white snake shirt.
Yeah, I bet you have a seersucker suit. Though,
absolutely.
I knew you did.
I do.
Southern
and
attorney.
Look,
Yeah.
I'm gonna brag about this.
Yeah.
I had that made at Stewart's men's shop in Martinsburg, probably back in 2006. Still fits.
Still
fits. It doesn't fit. It's a little tight.
Feels good to say that, though, doesn't it?
It does feel good to say that.
Yeah.
It's a sharp suit.
Very nice. Well, nicely done, Mr. Harvey. And Mr. Hardy, we have to make sure we're careful with the pronunciations on these fellows today here. You heard Joe Burton's intro there, the Director of Parks and Rec in Berkeley County, and his goal to get a levy put on the upcoming midterm elections next year to be able to fund operations in a way he feels is more appropriate for the population and the needs of Berkeley County Parks and Rec. John, your thoughts as a county commissioner who would have to approve that?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of conversations with Joe. I like having conversations with Joe because he's a lot like I am. There's not a lot of gray area. Just kind of everything's very transparent, and we have very open discussions. And I'm not afraid to say what I need to say, and he's not afraid to say what he needs to say, and very respectful of one another. I think he has done a tremendous job with Parks and Rec of getting a lot of things done that needed to get done. And I certainly understand that they are having some, a funding issue. There's not a dedicated funding stream for them, except for hotel motel tax. So, in their current form, their budget is about $4.2 million. That's all in. That's the city, the county, a little bit from the school board, what they generate themselves. So, $4.2 million is what they're working on, and they have come to the commission and asking for, we are the political subdivision that would have to grant them the ability to put that levy on the ballot. And I have had conversations with Joe and other people in the Parks and Rec board, and I am not in favor of that. I would not vote to put that levy on. In the 8 years that I've been involved in politics, I've never had a homeowner come to me and tell me they wanted to pay more taxes on their property. And my thought process is we keep going back to the same people. We keep beating on the same people, and I worry so much about our senior population, and I worry about our young population, and I worry about the population of West Virginians of Berkeley County people that have been here their entire lives, and you're a senior and you're living in falling waters, or you're living out in Back Creek Valley and your home's been paid for 30 years and you're still paying your property tax on it, and the property tax is going up every year, not because the levy rate's going up, but because of the value of the home. So you're paying your property tax, you're paying the school levy, the excess levy, the bond. Now you have a fire fee, you have an ambulance fee, you have a stormwater fee, and now we want to put another levy on you for Parks and Rec. At some point we have to be able to quit beating on the same people. I understand. I'm not. The fire fee and the ambulance fee are fees that are needed. The stormwater fee is just. It's an unfunded mandate, and I've been working on that. I had a great meeting with Senator Capito's office. She's the chair of a committee called EPW, Environmental and Public Works, and so we had some conversations with those people about trying to get Berkeley County out of the MS4 permit, or maybe trying to skinny up the MS4 permit. So we're working on that to try, because I know that is the most hated thing in Berkeley County, and I hate it myself. And I've done the research that the funding is mandated, and if we don't show that we are meeting the standards, then we can be fined, like I think it's $54,000 a day. But we're working on that front, trying to get some relief from the federal level, and that comes from a letter that I wrote to Senator Capito, and also included Chris Strovel in on, and Chris Strovel has been in that process and helping us too.
He's the Martinsburg representative for Senator Capito.
He is, yep. And Chris is a solid guy. He's a radio, he was a radio guy for years and years.
Having lunch with him today.
For sure. So, so he's helping on that front. But to get back to Parks and Rec, we have just passed, we're working on getting these impact fees implemented. And that's probably going to be maybe around August 1st, I think, when those get implemented. And we're landing at around $5,500 is what we're thinking for the impact fee. And, we've identified like $1.6 million that's going to be able to go to Parks and Rec through that. Now, that will have to go to capital. That cannot be used for operations, and Joe spoke about that. That money will have to go to capital and can't go to operations, and it goes to new growth. And I think where Joe was maybe a little confused, and listen, we're all figuring this out. I think it's going to take us a year or two to really figure out the impact fees and how they're going to be spent and what we can and can't do with them. There's a lot of rules and regulations, but there's not a lot of written statute. It's all case law. So there's not a state statute that says this shall be done and that shall be done. And there's really not even a federal statute that says this shall be done and that shall be done. It's really mostly been done through like federal case law. So there's a lot of gray areas and a lot of questions to be answered. And as I've told everyone, I will be a habitual line pusher to try to push into those gray areas to make sure that we are being able to utilize those impact fees to their fullest extent. So, with that being said, we're going to generate about $1.6 million a year. We've identified some funds through our TIF.
What cut of that goes to Parks and Rec, John?
1.6 will go to Parks and Rec.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so there's 5 different categories that we've identified. There was Parks and Rec, police, fire and EMS, schools, and then us, county administration. So those are the 5 that we've identified. So Parks and Rec will receive about $1.6 million if we stay in the trend that we're in, the 1,200 to 1,400 new homes a year, and that's where we've been trending. So
can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
I assume that counts for. Well, hold on. Let me back up. The impact fees are they applicable only to new permits?
Yes, they are only applicable to new resident. So there's 2 different brackets. There's new residential, and then under the new residential there's multifamily residential home, and I think there's one for mobile home, and then there's a commercial, and then the Parks and Rec and the school board, I believe, are the 2 that do not receive money from the commercial. Because they don't, right. It's not burdened by them. So there's a couple different allocations for that.
So is there a lot of permits still on the books in Berkeley County?
Yeah, so there's a lot of.
I know Jefferson County has a lot.
Yeah, I don't know about permits, but there's a lot, thousands of lots that have been that have already went through the process of being what's the word I'm looking, platted. So they're not developed, and they're not looking to be developed, but the developments are out there. They're platted properties, and people haven't moved forward on it. But we've been generating about 1,400 new building permits a year. Okay. I had some statistics because I sat on the water board too about how many new meters and stuff they're sitting. And some homes are on well and septic, so that's not a real good metrics. But the building permit from the county is the best metric, and that's where the impact fee will be collected. And let's don't understand the point too that the impact fee is somewhat of a tax on your home, whether you're building a new home or not, because it's $5,500 towards a new home to build it, but as soon as that is implemented, your home, my home, everyone's home is now worth $5,500 more, right? Because if it costs that much to build a new one, then obviously a percentage of that is going to go to existing homes towards the value of the home. Now, it's a little softer hit because the assessor is only assessing a third of the property, so it may be 3 years before you get that very, very small hit on your property,
and your property's getting hit at a 60% of full value level.
It is, but let's be completely transparent that it is a little bit of a raising taxes on your property with an impact fee.
Does the impact fee affect the resale of an existing home?
It does not. It's only on new construction going forward. It's say if we implemented August 1st, it's only moving first from August 1st on new residential, new commercial. There's different rates per square foot for commercial. The commercial is a completely different beast. The larger the building, the the smaller the number. So, and there's a lot of guidelines and a lot of guardrails how that's going to be spent. And I understand, Joe Burton from Parks and Rec's concerns about that we have all this new money for capital, but they don't really have money for operations. But
well, doesn't new money for capital open up money for operations?
Well, that's a gray area. That's what we're trying to figure out. Can we take some of the money that we had set aside for capital and that the parks generate now, for their capital, that they can move that into operations? And I don't know how much money they have for capital. I mean, like I said, they have a $4.2 million budget, but my concern is if they have a $4.2 million budget right now, and then we give them another 1.6, and then this levy would happen to pass, and then that's another $6 million. You're looking at like an $11 million budget for Parks and Rec. That is a huge budget, and I think if that happened before I would be able to be on board with that, there'd have to be some revamping of some oversights, because the county commission doesn't have a lot of oversight of the Parks and Rec. And
what do they want to do with the levy money? What would
they want? They want it for operations, and for not just operations, but they need it for deferred maintenance. So a lot of deferred maintenance and that type stuff.
Joe mentioned a lot of deferred maintenance.
Yeah, and deferred maintenance is always someplace where you can. I mean, there's always going to be deferred maintenance. That number is very.
Are we talking about fixing swimming pools, kind of deferred maintenance, or is it?
I couldn't answer that. I mean, I think there's some work that needs to be done at the dam, and there's probably buildings and there's always rooftop units that need to change.
War Memorial Park is leaking like a sieve right now too.
Yeah.
And they weren't expecting that when Joe was on. He talked about the amazing amount of water they're losing every single day at War Memorial Park through the liner. In addition, John, you're going to be opening up a new park in the south end of the county, phase 1 of it, and then there's still a couple phases to go long term. Somebody has to staff that park. Somebody's got to maintain that park. Someone's got to cut the grass, empty the trash cans, clean the toilets, sort of thing. And Joe is concerned about staff levels for taking on a whole new park.
Yeah, every agency is worried about staff levels. I mean, that's just part of the job.
But every agency is not adding a whole new park system to their existing agency.
Totally understand we're adding a park, and it adds to their operations, and we've had those discussions, and that park is just went out to bid for really just the construction phase of it, and so it's a couple years out before it's going to be up and running. We're going to have and if this levy went on to the ballot and it passed, you're looking at 3 years before you see any revenues from it anyway, right? So it can't go on the ballot till May. It would. So then all the taxes run a year in arrears. So you're 2.5 years before you see any revenue from this. So let's pump the brakes on the levy. Let's get 2 years of impact fees of $1.6 million going to Parks and Rec, and let's see where we're at. And oh, by the way, maybe we need to look at the boards and try to revamp some of that stuff. And I've got people probably got hair standing up on the back of some people's necks, but the school board is in the park system, and the school board gives Parks and Rec $140,000 a year out of a $40 million bond. Right? I'm going to say that again, $140,000 out of a $40 million bond. And oh, by the way, the school board has 3 voting members on the board. The Berkeley County Commission has an ex facto member on the board who's non-voting, right? So,
And how much does the county give Parks and Rec?
well, we give them half of hotel motel tax plus.
Do you give them that, or that's statutory?
It's not statutory. It's statutory that half of it goes to CVBs.
Okay.
But the other half of it is really whatever the county commission wants to do, and that's always been given to Parks and Rec, and no one wants to change that.
And what's that add up to, John?
I don't 2.2 or I don't know. I don't.
It's a substantial amount of money.
It's a lot of money. Yeah, I don't. I'm not gonna quote how much that is, but the county's always supported, and the city supports the parks, and the school board has in the past has supported the parks by letting them use facilities. That's why the school board was brought in. They would use facilities for summer programs and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, if the school board's giving $140,000 a year, do they really get 3 voting members and have a lot of say in the park services? And
does the school charge rent for the Randy Smith Center?
They do. It's $50,000 a year that the Parks and Rec pays to the school board, but I'm not sure if it's rent. I think it's payback of a loan. I think they ran out of money when they were building that facility, and they had to borrow, I think, $250,000 from the school board to finish it. So they're paying them $50,000 a year in payback. But if we split the park board from out of the school board, and I think Manny Arvon was really smart when he did that. He wanted to bring the Parks and Rec into the school boards because he could use that to help his bond pass his levies and stuff. The schools are part of.
Plus, they use his gyms at the time.
Sure, they did, and there's a partnership there. I'm not knocking that. There is a partnership there, but at some point in time, you have to go back and look. These things need to be reevaluated, and I think that's what I bring to the table. I am always thinking about how can we reevaluate these relationships. How can we make how can we cut a better deal? How can we get a better deal for our taxpayers? So,
is there any revenue generated by people who use the pools? Is there a fee to go use the pool?
There is. They generate a very large portion of their revenue is self-generated. They do a great job. The parks are beautiful. Parks and Rec does a great job. They generate a lot of their own revenue. I'm not knocking those guys at all. They are underfunded. They do need more funding. I just don't want to put another levy on the taxpayers when we have this brand new revenue source that we haven't quite figured out yet with the impact fees, that we can give them money, quite quickly. And that's going to happen quickly. With a levy, you're talking, a couple years out. And listen, you're trying to pass a levy that has to meet a 60% threshold in a midterm election, right, where you're probably going to have 17% voter turnout. I don't see that passing.
Joe Burton chimed in that the city, county, and BOE each have 3 voting board members for the Martinsburg, Berkeley County Parks and Rec. John.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. So the county has 3, the school board has 3, and the city has 3. The county commission has no vote.
County commission has no
and
vote.
I find that so strange when being on the county commission.
Who's the liaison?
What's the difference between? County. He said the county had 3 people. Is just county residents?
Yeah,
or not
county appointees.
But does the county commission appoint those people?
They do, but the county commissioner does not have a vote. And
does the city any city council members have a vote?
No, they're all appointed members.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I find very strange in its county government. So I'm on the planning commission. I oversee the planning commission for the county government, and I'm a voting member. But I also sit on the water board, which is its own independent kind of deal, its own 501c3. But I'm a non-voting member. I think it's really strange that county commissioners are not voting members on boards. I think if I'm going to be on a board, I want to be a voting member, or I'm not really interested in your board.
I don't know what delineates between. Is there some sort of impact with money? Is that how it's determined by statute, or just hodgepodge?
It could be because maybe the ambulance authority they have their own money, the fire department or the fire board has their own money, the water has their own money, sewer, they're probably their own 501c3s. But I'm a duly elected official in the county in Berkeley County, and if I'm sitting on your board, I want to vote. I mean, I find it. Why do you want me to come to your board and listen to what you're doing, but I don't really have any say in it?
Well, you're more of a liaison.
Sure, you are,
than a board member,
right? Well, that doesn't sit well with me.
Are you the liaison to Parks and Rec, John?
No, I am not. I believe
would that be Steve Allen, or not Steve Allen? Excuse me.
No, I think it's Eddie. I think Eddie is Parks and Rec.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So I mean, it may be Steve. I don't know. Maybe Steve is too close to it and didn't want to be.
Steve when he stepped away from Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
He did not want to be the immediate connection.
What's the temperature of the commission, the Berkeley County Commission, on this? Is it? Are they wanting to put it on the ballot?
I cannot speak for any other commissioner.
Okay.
I can tell you that John Hardy is a no. I'm not going to vote to put this on a levy. I'm not going to vote to put this on a ballot. I'm not.
Is it coming up for a vote?
Well, we don't have to even take it up. I mean, we let them come in. They give us the information. They can come back before us, and we can take it up for a vote, or we don't have to take it up for a vote. If they want to force the issue and make us vote, and we see where the commission stands, they could do that. I'm not sure if they'll do that.
What's the principled stance on not allowing the citizens to vote themselves a tax, if that's what they want?
I knew that question was going to come up, and it is a little hypocritical because for the sales tax, we wanted to put that on a ballot. But I think that's not apples to apples. I mean, that's a sales tax is a consumer-based tax that you're going to pick up a lot of money from pass-through economy, cash economy. People can kind of control their own spending. The problem with this levy is you're going back and hitting the same people over and over. So it is a bit hypocritical.
But it's an opportunity for people to put a stake through the heart of the whole idea,
right,
if they don't like it, or to embrace it. If parks are really important to people, then that would be shown in the ballot. I don't understand the reason not to just allow it to go out there for the vote.
My thinking is I'm not going to put it out for a ballot because I don't have any taxpayer. I have not one that's calling me and saying, Commissioner Hardy, would you please put this levy on the ballot because we want to pay $120 a year for parks, and it's not going to be very popular. I don't see any way that it passes. Let's talk about this. I'm going to say 17 to 20% voter turnout for a midterm election. Who comes out in midterm elections and primaries? Hardcore voters. People like me and my wife will vote we vote all the time. The electorate has moved further to the right. We know that, right? It's moved further to the right. So you're going to have 17% of probably hardcore, or if you have 17% of the voters, 10% of them are going to be hardcore conservatives that are never going to vote for a levy. So
then let them do your work for you, John. Right?
You know what terrifies me is the thought of a taxpayer-funded organization that feels that it's adequately funded.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
If they feel like they don't need any more money, then they're getting way too much money.
Right. And every agency, no agency is ever funded where they could be, and it doesn't matter how much money we raise. The agencies are still going to come and have wants and needs and want things, and I'm there to say no. I mean, I'm really there to say no, and that's my position. I feel like my position, and I'm only speaking for me as a taxpayer advocate. I want to, we already pay. I mean, people's personal property and real property taxes, like 77 cents or 80 cents of that goes to the school board, and they've got the levies, the excess levy. And I'm not beating on the school board. I'm just saying when you pay that bill, understand, 80 cents of that goes to the school board. So,
Mr. Hardy, good to see you again. What time does the meeting start today?
9:30. 9:30. Every standing meeting Thursdays at 9:30.
All right. And after the show ends at 10 on TV 10, we televise that meeting a half an hour into it. Just in time for you guys to take a break, usually, I think.
For sure. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks for coming. You look great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, very